look terrible as always, so I'm skipping. It's look terrible as always, so I'm skipping.
Here we go, folks.
Fair. I'll plead the fifth on any comments related to that.
All right, you guys are live now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, welcome everyone to the Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2023 meeting of the Finance Committee of Williamsport City Council. It's 1 o'clock, just about, almost exactly. And we have 6 items on our agenda today. All the members of the Finance Committee are here. Myself, Councilman Biter, Councilwoman Janice Frank. We also have Councilman John Mackey, Councilwoman Bonnie Katz in attendance. We have our treasurer, Kevin Mackey, and our HR department head, Molly Steele Shrimp. And it looks like we have Peg, or Janice Frank, I'm sorry, our clerk and city clerk, and Peg Woodring, I believe, is on by telephone, and Todd Wright is also present.
I'm here.
From okay. Well, let's get going. Item 1 is an ordinance, and of course, for the public, we have 4 ordinances in a row that deal with setting salaries for council, the mayor, the city treasurer, and the city controller. It's a once every 4-year window that we look at these things. So we'll be discussing that today in the Finance Committee. The first item 1 is an ordinance amending Article 111 of the codified ordinances of the city of Williamsport, setting the compensation of city council. So if everybody's got that up, we can begin discussion. Councilwoman Mealy, would you want to address?
Yeah.
Did you have?
Yeah, sure, Randy.
Yeah.
So I think, as you can see in this ordinance, that we have, historically speaking, done a council has received, both pension and healthcare benefits like other employees of the city, and then what some might call a rather meager salary. In fact, I think the salary hasn't increased since 1972 of $3,000 a year, with a small bonus for the president and the vice president of $250 and $500. And I think what we're contemplating doing, what you'll see reflected in the wording of the ordinance, is removing the healthcare benefit from council's package, because it is an outsized cost to the city. I think back when it was kind of thrown in 72, it was costing the city very little. But now, of course, every employee receiving even just single, insurance for a single person is costing the city somewhere between $7,000 and $10,000 a year. I think, Molly, is that accurate? Oh, well, maybe she's not there, but
Sorry.
yes. Sorry.
Yes,
That's accurate. Yeah. So really what we would do if we were to take our alternate A in this ordinance is pretty much roll into the city council salary the amount that we would currently be spending to insure any member of council as a single individual. And then, of course, individual council members, if they had insurance elsewhere or if they wanted to purchase insurance, would have the money to do that on the marketplace. And to me, that seems like, to me, frankly, the second option seems like a no-brainer. We protect the city from exposure in terms of both elected council people who choose to take family coverage, which can cost the city upwards of $25,000. And an elected member of city council knows exactly what what the package is. The healthcare coverage for what's effectively a part-time position is not something one would anticipate having included. And you would expect that most people on city council would receive that perhaps through their employer or have already organized healthcare coverage elsewhere. But you know what, the ordinance is built out with the two options, I think, to encourage discussion and then a final decision on Thursday, either in first reading or 2 weeks out in second reading, on which option we're going to move forward with. But what do you guys think?
Eric or anyone from council on this that's here?
I would have to agree with Liz in her statement that it makes the most financial sense for the city to not have members of city council drawing from the healthcare, specifically when you do have family plans that can take upwards of $25,000. The other thing that I would put into that is it makes it a little bit more difficult to look at the long-term rates that you're going to get from an insurance carrier when you could potentially have turnover in these positions of city council members every 2 years. You could have 3 and 4 individuals turn over. And what keeps those costs down, obviously, is the length of employment that we have for our city workers.
Okay. Thanks,
Yeah,
Eric.
I think that's accurate. And the predictability of the, you know, by and large of people's lifestyles. If you hire someone as a young person, eventually they will have a family, and then eventually, you know what I mean? There's a certain kind of scheme to these things, and council sort of throws that off. I think Eric's right there. Randy, could I introduce one other thing though that I had just
Absolutely.
brought up to Adam Riddle? The thing that I do think that we should contemplate if we move to alternate A on this ordinance is a 3% annual increase, the same way that we do with other elected officials by ordinance. Because we ran into this problem, of course, you know,
Right.
we're all elected members of city council, and we are currently being paid a salary that was set in 1972, when it was obviously a much larger amount of money than what it is today.
Mhm.
And I'm not complaining about the compensation, but what I am saying is I don't want to stick future members of city council in the same sort of boat where they look like jerks if they try to increase their compensation, and yet their compensation hasn't been reset since 2023, right?
Mhm.
So it seems to me like every other elected official position, you know, we'll look at the next 3 ordinances setting salaries for other elected officials. We should build in an annual increase so that this salary, to some extent, keeps pace with the times.
Mhm.
Those numbers are not reflected in that in the ordinance that you have in front of you, but I think it would something like 10,300 in 2024, then 10,700 in 2025, and then 11,000 and change in 2020. Well, I'm getting my years wrong. In 2025, 2026, 2027. But I think that would probably be the fair thing to do for future
Mhm.
councils, so that their salary doesn't stagnate the way that ours has.
Right. That was my thought too, that we should address the stagnation of council salaries if we're going to go with the higher amount. One thing, I'm not sure if this was addressed already, but it's in the ordinance, and we passed this a while ago, but the council right now is paying into the healthcare. Council people pay 5% of the premium for the individual council person, and 10% of the difference between the individual and dependent coverage. So basically what it works out to easily is you're either, all your council salary at this point is going into healthcare if you've taken the city healthcare, or you're having to pay in, which at some point with those percentages on the premiums, council people will be paying in at an increasingly higher rate. So But I do agree with the premise that we need to make a changeover for two reasons. One is we need to be able to address the dynamic in healthcare premiums, not just for council, but across the board in the city government and city employees. There's just no other way around it if we're going to be viable financially as a city in the future, because eventually we'll be way underwater if we don't make some changes. So I think council initially instituted some of these, the percentages to indicate that we believe that's the way to go for every employee. So, you know, that's a larger discussion for later, but I think it's important to note that. And I'm not, okay, this is more of a philosophical point, maybe, but at least in the plus 13 years now that I've been on council, Liz as well has been on that long, and Bonnie pretty close to that. My observation is the job of a council person has gotten much more complicated, even over the past dozen years or so. And you can say it's part-time. You can spend a lot of hours though, if you're keeping up on all these things. So I'm not so sure that sometimes there are weeks when it is full-time, when you're really digging into things and having meetings outside of council for a number of different initiatives and things like that. So I think it's important to note that the job has gotten more difficult. So having said that, you know, maybe 10,000, there's backup figures to how it got to 10,500, which we don't have to go in to today, or, you know, if someone wants to, they can. But maybe perhaps even 12,500 would be in the ballpark. So, you know, that's another thought that I had. Any of the other council members present? I see John's ready to go.
Yeah, hey Randy, if I could, I have a
Yes,
few
sir.
thoughts.
Absolutely.
Well, so I guess first of all, this is what it's like to be part of a finance committee meeting. This is pretty exciting stuff. So I've heard words like competitive. I've heard Liz use the word competitive. Let's build in some 3% increases to stay competitive. Randy, I think you hit the nail on the head. I've only been doing this for 3 years. And yeah, there's a couple of weeks, you know, when I put a lot of time into this job. There's some weeks when I don't. It just depends on what our agenda looks like every 2 weeks and what's going on in the city. But when I hear words like competitive, complicated, and then we look at a $10,000 salary, which is essentially $4.80 an hour. Pennsylvania minimum wage is $7.25. My 11-year-old's making $11 an hour at his part-time job. So, I mean, how competitive are we actually being here? We're asking people to potentially run for, which in itself is not easy,
Exactly.
get elected to and perform a job, a very important job for a city of, you know, 28,000 people with a very large budget of lots of moving parts for $4.80 an hour. You know, I mean, I understand the argument here, and yes, healthcare is very expensive. But if we're thinking about getting rid of healthcare, which is a very big carrot out there, I think, for future candidates and future city council people, then I think we really need to heavily consider a realistic part-time salary for city council members, not $4.80 an hour. I guess my other question would be, is hypothetically, if option A were be passed as it was, that I'm assuming is that that starts in 2024 and that is retroactive for all 7 city council members. Is that correct?
I believe so, the way it's worded here.
So for instance, this wouldn't be just for new city council members. This would be for all city council members. Is that correct?
I'm not sure the way the ordinance shall be effective to members of city council whose term begins January 2024. So
I guess my question is, and
maybe
this is all, should this be public record or not? I suppose it should. We're all elected officials. I personally take the city's healthcare. It was an option that was afforded me when I was elected to this position, and I decided to take it. I can't speak for the 3 members of city council who are just got elected and will be sitting on city council for the next 4 years, whether or not they take the healthcare. So in my mind, if this is only affects new council members, and we're all sitting here saying that we need to do something about the cost to the city, then in my mind, if there are the 3 members of city council who just got elected and are taking healthcare, they should voluntarily withdraw from that program, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to make this fair and equal across the board.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I think it would apply to all of us across the board, John. That is, to Randy's point, it might not apply until like Randy and my terms are over in 2 years. And that's kind of what you're getting at, right?
Yeah, I am getting it.
But
That's exactly
if you run for reelection, John, it will, you know what I mean? It will apply to you next year if you're running for reelection and you get elected.
Correct. But if we're all on the same page here, that this health insurance is costing the city too much money, and you're going to vote yes on it, Liz, Randy, and I believe, help me out, Eric.
Yeah, Eric, are you?
Yeah.
Eric was the one who came in with us, right?
Right.
Yep.
In my mind, again, I'm not going to ask you to state this publicly or not. That's up to you. If you are taking the healthcare, I would say if you're going to vote to take healthcare away from incoming city council members, then you should also be willing to withdraw from the program to save the city money, if that is what we're trying to do here.
Well, and that's exactly, I mean, that I do take the city's healthcare, and I have for the whole 13 years I've been elected. I did not elect to put my family on it. But I do take the healthcare for myself. And that's actually a large part of the reason that I make the point, John, is just that doesn't seem quite right to me. And I think, and Randy and I have had conversations about this, and I believe that we both feel that way. And in fairness, John, I don't think I've ever known a member of council who didn't take the city's healthcare. Not that I've had that conversation with all of them, but of people with whom I've discussed healthcare, all the city council members I've discussed it with have taken the city's healthcare.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
And again,
If I may, John, really
sorry.
quick, I do not take the city's healthcare.
And I wasn't asking you all to make some kind of grand.
No, that's quite all right. I'm
Right.
happy to say that.
I just think it's important to note that what exactly it is we're talking about here. And again, as to the salary, if that's the way we decide to go, I personally think $4.80 an hour is not adequate enough. So
that should be part of the discussion, definitely, John.
The one point that I would make is I think the position is conceived of as a part-time position. And I know that we would all agree that we put more than part-time effort into it sometimes, but then there probably are other times maybe we put a little less than 20 hours a week in. Is that accurate?
Sure, but if you go get a part-time job at McDonald's, they're going to pay you $7.25 an hour at least.
Well, my point is at part-time, if it's a 20-hour-a-week position, 1,000 hours a year, you'd figure 2 weeks vacation, right? Which we get in August and December. Then you're making 10 an hour at 10,000 a year.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, we could,
480 would be if we were working 40 hours a week, which I don't think anyone out there is making the case that they routinely work 40 hours a week on council. Except Randy, who definitely did that when he was president. And I didn't know why you did that, Randy, and I had a lot of respect for it.
Well, yeah, no comment there, but I think because I'm sure others spend a lot of time going through the information. I do think, yeah, we really need to nail down some things here. I don't see any legal reason, but I don't know for sure why we can't have one for all and all for one in this, John. I think it's a good point, and we can address that, I'm sure, with the solicitor, and or voluntarily we can do it. But the other thing is, it depends what number you want to plug in there for future salaries. You're talking about if you average it out 20 hours a week, just $15 an hour isn't a lot of money anyhow these days, and that would be 15,000 a year. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. And obviously this is a radioactive subject, no matter which way you look at it, as far as trying to mitigate the effect on current members of council, or make sure it's equitable, rather. And then I'm sure there's members of the public that think we're overpaid as it is right now. So, we're gonna step into some deep water here, but I think it needs to be done in any case.
well, hard conversations are never easy
No, they're not
conversations to have. And again, I do, when I hear Liz say competitive, I think that's important. And I think it's important not only for us, the people who are putting in the work right now, but for anybody that may want to run for city council in the future. I mean, I want this to be, we need people to keep running for city council. We're not all going to be on city council forever. I certainly don't plan on being on city council. I certainly don't plan on being on city council forever. So, we need this to be attractive to people, to quality candidates who want to actually take this job and put the time in and make good decisions for the city of Williamsport, which I believe, I will just publicly say, I believe all 7 of us currently are doing. I think every single person on city council cares about the city. And I do appreciate the time that everyone puts into this job. So at any rate, I would like to definitely, obviously, we need to talk about this more on Thursday, but those are my thoughts. So I appreciate everybody taking the time to let me speak as a non-member of the finance committee.
Absolutely. You're a member of council, so.
You're always welcome, John.
Yes.
I can feel the love.
No, it's true. Actually, to John's point, Randy, the one other thing I would say is that I think in some ways we all treat this job as something that basically constitutes volunteer work. And if we're being honest, frankly, salaries up and down the political spectrum are never, as a rule, what people could make in the private market. I don't remember what the president of the United States salary is. It's what, $200,000 a year or something like that, which is a lot of freaking money. Don't get me wrong, but is not commensurate with what that person could make in the private sector, more than likely.
Right.
And so I think there's always been this idea that elected office is in some way like slimly compensated volunteer work. But to John's point, if we're looking to get a city council that looks more like the city of Williamsport, which is to say, where people are doing the job, but not necessarily people who do it out of, like they might be people who actively need the compensation, not people for whom it's a bit of a token. And that to me is the strongest argument for increasing compensation above that threshold.
Right.
Because otherwise it will always be, and I don't really know which way it should be. Should it be something that's effectively lightly compensated volunteer work, or should it be something that could be considered a real part-time job? But the point is we can only attract a certain type of person if we're not compensating fairly for the work being done.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Again, I think the issues that are dealt with nowadays in municipal government, a city of our size and larger, are more, it's definitely a part-time job. It's not volunteer work in the true sense of if you're going to do a good job, that is. I mean, there's politicians, we know, all of us, that at every level that are just taking up space in the seat. But as John said, we can vouch that this council's not like that. And Bonnie, did
Yes, this has always been a bone of contention with several of the taxpayers that we were getting paid medical, and then we started paying into our medical. But what everybody is talking about is so true. The compensation isn't equal to everybody. Some are taking single, like Liz. Some are taking family plans. So therefore, what is taken and being paid for, even though it's 5 or 10%, is still not equitable. We've always joked about, well, none of us are getting any raises. This has been $3,000 for umpteen years. But I've always felt that you ran for this office because you love the city. You wanted to see what you could do to work with the city for the best of the taxpayers. And if you ran for the office because of the benefits, or even in quotes the salary, you're in the wrong profession. You shouldn't be doing it. I do have a question though for Liz and Randy. I don't know why in the back of my mind I remember this from years ago, but somebody stated that council is part of one of the unions. Are we part of a union?
no.
No? Okay. I don't know why that was stated to me, that I remembered something of that years ago. I just wanted to clarify that because it was just something that was niggling in the back of my mind.
Mhm.
But other than that, I think if we're going to do a compensation salary wise, how many times have we heard from this administration, in order to get good people, you got to pay for it.
Right.
And what we're finding out in this time in the world is that people are all putting a dollar amount on what they do. There are very few people that will do things just for the love of it, compared to the people that are looking for a compensation. We probably do have to look at some kind of a paid salary, more than $3,000 a year, because it's you do want to attract other people. And like I said, we've been hearing that time and time again, especially with all the administrations. How many hours do we put in a week if we're not working on the agendas? I mean, and all of us can attest to this. We're researching, we're looking for answers. For me, I mean, I've learned more about pipes and pumps than I ever knew when I first started council, and it's, and I know people look at me strangely when I can, talking about it, and I become to love the pipes and pumps in this city, learning about the levee, learning about Graffius Run. I've looked at it this way with everything that I've done with city council. It's all been a learning curve in some areas. I mean, I was not educated in anything water wise, but you research, you study, and you spend a lot of time doing that. So it's not just what's on the agenda, it's what's part of your city that you also work on. And I think we all do that. at it because we want to be informed. When somebody calls, a taxpayer calls you, you want to be able to have some answers at least. And if not, being able to say, I will get back to you as soon as possible. I will find the answer. So, 20 hours a week, if it's not a big agenda, yeah, maybe we're not working 20 hours, but yet we're taking phone calls, we're doing other kind of things that involve the city. So Randy and Liz, I think this is something, and Eric, that should be discussed with the full body of council.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
I'm finished. I'm off my soapbox now.
Okay. We covered a lot of ground there and a lot of good subjects. Are there any other comments from council members? Okay, to be continued then. Let's move on to item 2. And the next 3 are rather straightforward. An ordinance amending Article 123 of the codified ordinances of the city of Williamsport, setting the compensation for the mayor. First reading. We'll move on to that one, and it's rather straightforward. The same, I believe that's a 3% raise, right? Every year. And we're setting it for 24, 25, 26, and 27 for the mayor's salary. You see the numbers before you. And the same stipulation for the healthcare that applies to council, also applies to the mayor, the 5% premium for individual, 10% for the difference. Any comments from Finance Committee?
I have nothing, Randy. I think this is a relatively done deal.
Yeah.
I have nothing as well.
Myself, I don't either. Bonnie or John?
No, nothing.
Okay. We'll move on. The same, this is ordinance Article 129 for the city treasurer. Excuse me. And that also appears to be 3%, I believe. Are there any comments from council members on that?
Yeah, well, at least I would offer a comment on this. It seems to me as though we should, the city treasurer position is a full-time position within the city. And I fear that if we don't increase the compensation, at least somewhat, we're going to run the risk of having a hard time finding qualified individuals to run for the position.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not certain what the fair level to raise it to would be.
Mhm.
Clearly, we don't need to, aim for like a CPA in the prime of his or her career or anything like that.
Mhm.
But I do think the salary needs to be more competitive than it is. So and I would be happy to try to consider that between now and Thursday and discuss, I would actually guess that Molly might have some insight into that as well. But it seems to me like we will need to increase this at least slightly if we hope to attract and potentially retain a treasurer with some capabilities and enthusiasm in the office.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Those are my thoughts as well. Eric, any? No.
Nothing that hasn't already been said.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to item 4, which is setting the salary for the city controller. Again, there's this the step raises. Any comments on this? Liz or Eric? Or Bonnie or John?
I don't have anything to say.
Nor do I.
Yeah, no, I think that this is appears to be commensurate with the workload in that office. So.
Yeah. Okay. Very well. Let's move on to item 5. Resolution by municipality certifying provision of the local match for the state operating financial assistance. And this deals with the River Valley Transit Authority. Todd Wright is present. Hi, Todd.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Would you care to address this a little bit with us all?
Sure. This is an annual resolution. It happened when RVT was part of the city. Now just going to the authority instead of River Valley Transit itself. Each year, RVT, now RVTA, receives 1513 operating assistance from PennDOT in the state of Pennsylvania. A stipulation of us receiving that operating assistance is collect a certain amount of local matching funds to receive the state assistance. And this year, our state assistance did go up 14.1%. But as the legislation reads, they won't increase our local match amount more than 5% over prior year. As we've done in the past, we look at how we base our division of the local match is a lot based on miles that we run through municipalities. We've looked at it numerous ways, be it boards and lights, miles. We didn't see much change in ridership or service over prior year. So we did keep the percentages the same. We did apply the 5% increase across the board for the municipalities. The county is also kicking in 100,000 that they've done for us in the past couple of years. But the city's amount for FY23 would be $283,254.30. We just need to collect this amount before the end of the FY23 fiscal year. Again, we do this routinely on an annual basis, but I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Questions, council?
Not to raise the ghost of Bill Nichols in this meeting, Randy, but this is a standard resolution, and I think we've all been over this before.
Yes,
Thanks, Todd, for explaining it quite well.
Todd, I had one question. RVTA has received a commitment of 100,000 from the county, and we have a commitment from the 9 additional partner municipalities. We have that.
Yeah, we're working on, we have sent out all the information to get the resolutions from those municipalities as well.
Because it seems like in the past there was some miscommunication or misunderstanding, and we didn't get some of that money at different times, or
there had been in the past there were monies that were being considered local match that were coming from outside municipalities. So it kind of skewed amounts that we were billing the municipalities.
Mm-hmm.
We've obviously at this point received enough clarification from PennDOT. Our local match amount has to come from municipalities, and there was some confusion, a lack of communication back in the 2020 year, 2021, for some municipalities that weren't contributing that we were serving. Have since had conversations and expect that we'll get that money collected from them, just as from the city moving forward.
Mr. Wright, who were those municipalities that were not participating?
One of the big ones was when we started the service to Jersey Shore. They were totally unaware of any local match requirement that would be due for us giving them service. The other ones, and they're smaller, and again, I could, depend upon how far we drill this down, but when you're looking at, like, are you considering Muncie Township, Muncie Borough, you know, some of the smaller ones, we may run through and have a couple stops, and, you know, like I said, how far can we drill this down?
Mhm.
How far can we?
Well, I mean, there again, we're about the only system in the state that still drills this down by municipality, to this detail. A lot of systems across the state of Pennsylvania deal with mainly larger, like, city, and a lot of them just deal directly with the county on collecting their local matches.
So is it in RVTA's best interest to restructure how it collects these monies?
I think moving down a road now that the authority is established, and depending upon what the board structure looks like and who has a seat at the table, that there could be some restructuring in this, yes. We are in the process of implementing a new route planning and run cutting software that will give us a lot of demographic data that we can apply, and looking at how our routes are functioning, and what, you know, would be the best way if we are going to make modifications. It's looking at population density, you know, distances from major areas to bus stops, things like that. It's going to give us a lot of great data that we can look at tweaking our service to get the best bang for the buck.
Does PennDOT have anything to say about the amount of monies that you would be collecting from the municipalities?
No, PennDOT does not dictate how a transit system can collect its local match. It's up to the system itself.
Thanks for that education, Mr. Wright. I appreciate it.
Randy, I have some questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Bonnie.
Todd, in the past, we've had problems collecting money from one of the entities, was the mall. Have they caught up on what they owed RVTA?
I know that as far as what we've been billing them, we have been reaching out. I think we did, and I could get this information for you to find out exactly where they're at. But I do believe there is an arrears amount from the mall that doesn't go into our local match. That's considered an organizational paid fare, simply because we are providing service to that location.
Well, from what I understand, when RVT was in the process of coming into RVTA, and the billing went out to all the municipalities, it went up, not considerably, but it did go up in what was required of them to pay. And there was pushback from some of the municipalities. Are you still getting pushback from some of the municipalities? I can't remember who they were, but I do know, I can remember that distinctly.
We attended a couple borough meetings with Hughesville and Montoursville, and just kind of gave them a little bit of education on what this local match is used for and why we need it. And it seemed to calm and answer any questions, concerns they had about why we were making the request.
Now I'm going to go to Williamsport. We are paying a lot of money. $200,000 is a lot of money. I don't remember, Randy, Liz, Eric, was this in our budget at all to be paying this? I don't remember, and I didn't go up and get my budget book.
Bonnie, I believe it's a budgeted amount, although I would be
Yeah.
hard pressed to tell you exactly what line it comes from. But this has been coming out of the city's budget ever since I can remember.
Yeah, I know it's been coming out, but this has been raised quite a bit at this point.
Yes and no. I think that we've always been paying something somewhat consistent with this.
Right.
We were simply under the understanding that it was being subsidized by other entities for a while,
Right.
but I don't believe it ever was. So I think we're fiscally in the same boat. But yes, off the top of my head, Bonnie, and I apologize for not having a better answer for this. I don't know which line it comes out of in the city's budget, but we do budget it annually. In terms of the change in amount, Todd, have you spoken to the mayor? Do we have the slight increase?
I did send an email off to Tracy back when you guys were doing your budget and let him know what the amount was anticipated we would be asking for.
Good, then I would anticipate we're in line, Bonnie. I will confirm that before Thursday, or ideally Tracy and the mayor will be there. and be
I
able to
think you can
confirm it for us.
understand, for me, this was a busy week for me to try and get up and go through the budget. Book.
I think we're in the same boat.
We're in the same boat, and it's like, so, and I apologize for not having that information also. But, just out of curiosity, I wanted to know where we were budgeted with this. And it is a necessary evil that we have to do. I do, Todd, think maybe eventually, because you're chasing your tail after a lot of municipalities, it would probably make your life easier if this could be combined into one conglomerate instead of trying to chase everybody. And looking at your diagrams and everything, it really looks like the ridership is down. Is it starting to come back, or are we leveling out of where we were with the ridership in RVTA?
No, we're still seeing an increase. Obviously, the COVID pandemic put a big hurt on ridership, just about as much as anything else going on. But we are seeing it come back. We are seeing seniors start to ride more often again, and our ridership is people going back to work and then back into the daily routine. We are still seeing an increase on an annual basis. Not what we would like. It's slow, but it is coming back.
Okay. I thank you very much, Todd, for answering the questions.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Any other questions from council members?
I have none.
Okay,
Nothing here, Randy.
all righty. We'll go to our last item, item 6, any related items? Are there any other issues to bring up? And I hear none. So I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everybody. See you.
Happy
Bonnie.
Valentine's Day, everyone. See you on
Yes,
Thursday.
you as well.
Yes, get out there and do something with the ones you love, folks. Night night.
Bye-bye.